This time of year, a good hoodie is absolutely essential. But it's tough to find one that will last through the season. That's why the American Giant Classic Full Zip Hoodie is made to last a lifetime. So you can count on it to bring you comfort and warmth year after year. Slate Magazine called it the greatest hoodie ever made. And from cotton to zipper, it's made right here in the USA. With timeless style, heavyweight fleece, a double-lined hood, and reinforced elbow patches, you can depend on it for years to come. Snag the hoodie that will bring you comfort for life, the American Giant Classic Full Zip, and save 20% off your first order at american-giant.com when you use code CLASSIC24 at checkout. That's 20% off your first order at american-giant.com, code CLASSIC24.
All day. Do you know what? I must be the only man that has so many wonderful days because I say the same thing every single time. So I must control the weather or something. But it is another wonderful day because Jacqueline Wagner is with me today. Absolutely wonderful and beautiful at that. I wish you could see her. Now, I'm going to stop talking as I usually do. Otherwise, I'll take it over and I will let her introduce herself and tell us what's she doing right now, what's her business, and we'll go with the flow as we usually do. Jacqueline, thank you for coming on with me. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for having this show. I think this is so important. As someone who is heavily steeped in the neurodivergent community on both sides of my family, I am very grateful that this is available.
Yeah, I must admit, it's hard to get the support that's needed, especially to show that we can be very successful and we're very gifted. It's not usually seen as that, but this is why I thought it was very important to do these podcasts to show that, hey, you can achieve more so than most.
Yes.
And hence why you're here today. So tell us, what are you all about? What's your business? And we'll go from there.
Okay, so I am a 25-year employment law attorney. I represent businesses, employers, supervisors, leadership in all things employment, pre-litigation, and human resources. So I train, I do HR consulting, I do conflict resolution, investigations, all things pre-litigation. I'm not interested in litigating. I was a litigator for 25 years. I'm out of that business now, but now I'm focusing on preventing employment litigation.
Wow. I'm telling you, 25 years of it. I wouldn't have known it. You look so young.
Oh, thank you.
But, okay, so you've done that for 25 years. But let's talk about the neurodivergent side of it, because you're obviously very successful and very successful for a very long time. But for you to get to that stage, there must have been a time where you thought, what am I going to do? Because I have this problem and that problem. There's no way I can be successful in this, that, and the other. Obviously, you didn't get to the stage of business. You were doing things way back in the days. So just take us back when you had issues before you knew you officially had these issues.
Okay.
Let's start us off there.
All right. So as a little girl, I already could tell that I sort of thought differently. The comments I was making in the classroom were different than my peers. I was looking at issues from a different perspective. And so my questions would be different, odd even. And I noticed that, and I kind of always felt like I didn't quite fit in. Mm-hmm. My brother has dyslexia, and so he was the one who was diagnosed early. He was diagnosed, I think, when he was in the second grade. He's 5 years behind me. And my mom was so consumed with getting him the help he needed because his learning disabilities were more intense than mine. I really just kind of had to white knuckle it and go at it on my own. And I developed my own discipline for success. And I really just like things that I did not excel in were math and the sciences. I really excelled in the language arts. So it didn't occur to me that there was a problem. I knew there was a difference, but I didn't really see that there was a problem until I went to law school. And in my first year of law school, I fumbled the ball, right? It was the Peter principle. I kept succeeding and rising, and then I crashed when I got to law school. And one of my professors, I failed out of my first year of law school. And one of my professors recommended that I be tested for learning disabilities. I thought, how is that possible? Here I am, a first year law student. Obviously, I don't have a learning disability. Well, I went to go get tested.
Okay.
And I was tested at a community college. I had very little money. So I just got tested at a community college by like a psychology student who was trying to work on their degree. And I went through a battery of tests. And they sat down with me. They thought that I was enrolled in the community college.
Okay.
And they said, it's going to be very difficult for you to get a degree. So, you may want to consider other opportunities. And it made me very angry. And I said, I'm really glad I didn't get diagnosed before I finished my degree. Because if I had heard that information, it would have influenced me. I already have a degree. I'm in law school. And you didn't do me any services by telling me that. And I think it was a learning opportunity for them too. But then armed with the knowledge that I had pretty severe and distracting ADHD, I sort of recalibrated and intensified my drive. And ADHD folk tend to be really good at fixating and obsessing. My fixation and obsession then became law school. I started watching the Rocky movies. I started reading books about competition and power. And I made myself into a machine. I went back to law school. I finished third in my class, and the rest is history. I've had to make self-accommodations through my career, but it's not been easy, but it has been worth it because now I sort of get to write my own script.
Well, let me say you are totally right when it comes to the degree situation, that if you had known about I cannot do the degree thing because I have this, it would have stopped you, because I resonate with that, because I found that earlier on, just in my late teens, really, and that stopped me from going further. Not because of anybody else, and I'm not blaming anybody else, but I thought to myself, oh, right, I've got this. There's no way I can do a degree. So what you're saying is totally right. If I hadn't have thought officially that I had an issue, then I probably would have just struggled and thought, okay, I can do this. Okay, I'm not very strong in this, that, and the other, but I can go forward. But you're totally right, Jacqueline. People tell you can't because
right.
As soon as that happens, you tend not to, and especially when you're quite young. So I totally resonate with that. But let's go a bit further back between your brother and you, because you obviously had the issues and you knew you had issues at the time, while your brother, excuse me, had the support because it was more blatant, can I say, with the issues he had, because he had dyslexia. But it's not to say that you didn't struggle, which you did. Let's compare that, because that's a form of divergence that he has, and so do you. And it doesn't mean, and I try to get this out there, is that not all divergence are the same. It's quite the opposite. It's very complex. So let's compare the issues he had to your issues. Could you do that for me?
Sure, I'm happy to. So comparatively, my brother, and I recommend that you interview him as well. He is a success story if you ever heard it. I'll let him tell his story, but he is very successful. So comparatively, he was struggling to read, by the fourth grade, still struggling to read. Not, he was still learning to read, not reading to learn. And so, if a house is on fire, you put out that fire, and the other houses may be in disrepair on the street, but the house that's on fire is the one that you've got to address immediately. I was in disrepair. He was on fire. Oh. And so but by virtue of my mom, we're really lucky. She was a stay-at-home mom, and she was able to roll up her sleeves and totally dedicate herself toward his success. And by virtue of overhearing her language with him, I was able to adopt that too. My mother was not going to take dyslexia as an excuse. It was a reason, but it wasn't an excuse. She didn't accept any excuses. You still had to do the work. You still had to be, you still had to have drive. You still had to achieve. And dyslexia was, in her view, and ADHD, a gift, not a curse. It was a gift.
Wow.
You are lucky. You get to see the world through a different lens than every other drone out there. And my son is on the autism spectrum, and we now know that this is all genetic. My son is on the autism spectrum, and having watched her approach to navigating the world of dyslexia, I was able to take those same skills, and I'm navigating parenting my son who's on the autism spectrum. And I told him from the very beginning that this was a gift from God, not a curse. I don't want to ever hear, oh, but I'm on the autism spectrum, blah, blah, blah. No, this is a gift. You see the world in a totally different way, and that's a gift. And I celebrate his autism. I don't explain it. I don't make excuses. I celebrate it. And I also hold him to a high level of responsibility. Just because you're on the autism spectrum doesn't mean you get to act like a jerk, right? That's his manifestation of autism. He kind of tends to be antisocial, say things that are not great.
Yeah.
And so I'm not going to excuse that behavior.
No, you're totally right. I mean, and I do see things as what I have is as a gift, but it took me a long time before that was the situation. It's only in the last few years I see it as a gift, because it was before then it was a pain in the ass, and that's how I perceived it. But when I realized that I could use the gift in business, and it was so easy to use that gift in business, being able to see problems before anybody else without even knowing why how I can solve problems. And I thought, hey, I can really use this, and it is a gift. Nobody is good at everything, and it's no different to neurodivergence. You have your strengths, you have your weaknesses, and you just roll with the punches, and you don't make excuses.
Right.
So I'm glad you had the support from your mother, because your mother had certain issues too. So she knew how to deal with it also, didn't she? No,
my mother is neurotypical, sort of entrenched, 3 people surrounding her in her sandwich, her life sandwich. Her husband is ADHD, her son dyslexic and ADHD, and I'm ADHD. And then my daughter is ADHD, and my son is on the autism spectrum, and ADHD as well. Those usually go hand in glove. But yeah, we're a saturated family. Yeah. But because she's the odd person out, she's the one who's, we both married people who were neurodivergent, my brother and I. And so my mom is now the odd person out. She's the only neurotypical person in the family, and quite conformative, quite conventional, and we pride ourselves that we're not.
Okay, all right. Okay, well, let's look into that further. I mean, if your mother is so-called conventional, how did she get to the mindset to say that it is a gift? That's not typical when you cannot put yourselves in the shoe of others. So what happened in the past with your mother, or is she made a certain way? Was her parents a certain? How did she come about to appreciate it was a gift, knowing that she did not live that gift? It's difficult to walk other people's shoes, is it not,
Sure.
when you don't have the shoes yourself?
I think she recognized that we were both hyper intelligent,
Mm-hmm.
and she could see that there was something at odds with that intellect. And in getting him tested really young for that day and age, by second grade, she was listening to the medical professionals who were telling her, this is what it is. This is what the mind does when it looks at a word, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So she really educated herself. And this is before the internet. So she was, going to the library and doing research. And again, she had the privilege of doing that because she was a stay-at-home mom. But put the work in. She really put the work in. And then she found an organization called the Slingerland Institute.
Okay.
And with, I don't know what money, because there was not a lot of money, she sent my brother to the Slingerland Institute every day after school, exclusive of his homework times. My brother has an incredible work ethic. And he would go to the Slingerland Institute and really learn how to read. And part of what the Slingerland Institute did was unpack how he saw letters, scrambled, and then taught him his own alphabet back to him so that he could read in, not teach him to read how we see the words, but teach him to read how he saw the words. And it was revolutionary at the time.
Yeah.
So I think her immense dedication is what drove her ability to see there's something there. My son, as his work ethic got stronger and stronger, she could see that he was capable. And he graduated Phi Beta Kappa from college. I mean, he has a tremendous work. He has his master's degree. He's a major player at where he works. He's a college professor now. He's an amazing individual. And it's because he had to learn how to cultivate his work ethic at a very young age.
So your mother was a great icon.
Icon?
Yeah, something to really look up to.
I think so. Were her methods always great? No.
Yeah. We make mistakes, right? We are parents ourselves.
You're absolutely right. Without her drive, we would not be where we are.
Yeah.
She didn't get to go to university herself. It was in that day and age very rare for a woman to go to college. And she resented that. She really resented that she hadn't been given the opportunity, even though she was very bright and did well in high school, and was not going to let anything get in the way of her children going to university. And so it didn't matter if there was a dyslexia diagnosis. She was full steam ahead.
Amazing. It's an amazing story. And let's just go forward, because you said with your journey, you were studied, you put yourself in focus mode, because obviously your brother got the focus from your mother. So you had to do what you had to do. But then you got to a wall yourself and were surprised when you're going through the exams and etc. And that shock you had, how did that make you feel? I know you've described some of how you made you feel, but you had a rhythm going all those many years, and all of a sudden you hit that brick wall. Now, when that brick wall came, How much of a shock was it?
It was a tremendous shock, but it resonated. It explained why I was struggling. I knew I was very smart. I knew that I was capable. I had really strong self-efficacy.
Mhm.
And when my performance wasn't meeting my efficacy, it didn't make sense to me. I didn't understand why it was such a struggle to open the book and read, or to apply myself, or why it took so much energy for me to do that. And to this day, it takes a ton of energy for me to do that. So to find out that there was a diagnosis that supported and bolstered why I was struggling, it made sense to me. And then I could leverage it, right? So where do I have strengths from my learning disability, air quotes, versus where I was struggling? So I learned to capitalize on, oh, I can do a lot of things at once. I can have a lot of different interests, multi-interest, I think they're calling it now, multi-passion. I was multi-passionate, and other people would look at me like, why don't you just stick to the one thing? And I couldn't stick to the one thing. And I learned that was unique, that most people just, okay, we're going to do this with our career. And I was like, well, what about this? And what about this? And what about this?
Yeah.
Still a lawyer, but I want to present. I want to do trainings. I want to do this. I want to do that.
Yeah.
And learning that I had to kind of create my own career to fulfill myself, right? I'm going to be 53 next month. And I learned I had to create my own career. I've got another 20, 30 years left in me to keep going full bore ahead. And do I want to do that fitting myself into the box of how someone else defines this occupation? Or do I want to define it myself? That's a tremendous gift that if I didn't have ADHD, I wouldn't have. I would be very conformist and conventional too.
Very boring, that would be.
Yeah.
The dynamics of life is great. All right. Leveraging. You said you found out about this disability, things made sense, but then you learned how to leverage. Leverage what and how?
Leverage the hyperactivity, right? So my brain never shuts off. I have learned to, and I'm not always successful. I do struggle still. That's never going to go away. But, the iPhone certainly has been a great tool because I can open my notes while someone's talking to me and I'm distracted. I can open my notes app, jot a couple things down that are racing through my head while they're speaking, and then come right back to the conversation. Most people aren't doing that. They're able to focus completely on the conversation and they don't get distracted. And that doesn't make any sense to me how that's possible. So multi-thinking, I think that's a gift that I've leveraged because I can pay attention to several things at once. I'm extremely driven because, as I discussed, a person who's neurodivergent is able to fixate and focus in a way that someone who's neurotypical cannot. And with all the passion of a love affair, right? And so this is what I want to do. This is my pet project right now, and I'm laser focused on it, and I'm able to put all of my resources into it intellectually, and you're wildly successful when you're able to do that. And then the way that I think differently than most people, I still, when I make comments in meetings or when I bring issues to my clients, I never thought of it that way. I hear that a lot. And I used to think, oh, I don't think like everybody else. Something's wrong with me. But now I realize I don't think like everyone else. I can see where there are risks and blind sides for the
Mhm.
client, and it really helps them to navigate and prevent themselves from getting sued. It's very useful.
Totally. And then remember, I said earlier on about being able, me personally, be able to see and solve problems very easily. And you're obviously, that's what you do. And that's partially why you're successful. But there are times where you find things overwhelming.
That's
What
right.
days, just give me a typical overwhelming day and how you try to solve that overwhelm.
So, hand in glove with any neurodivergence is a struggle with anxiety. And when there is a lot coming at me all at once, I notice that a neurotypical person is able to compartmentalize. They're able to say, okay, I'm going to prioritize what I need to address and in what order, right? Let's say you've got an email coming in from a client who needs help right now. And you also have a phone call coming in from someone who needs help right now. And there's also a deadline pending that you need to get something out the door. There's also a human resources issue that you need to take care of with one of your employees. There's also a problem at home that you need to address. Oh, and also you got a call from your kid's school. And 9 times out of 10 for me, they happen all at once, right? All in the same day. And I believe that we attract that to ourselves, right? I believe the universe is a portal that if we're feeling frenzied, we bring in more frenzy. So I try to manage that. But that's a struggle. And I still struggle with the prioritizing and compartmentalizing, not letting that problem seep into that problem, right? And so forcing myself, and I struggle, I want to emphasize, forcing myself to compartmentalize into silos. All right, let's take out a piece of paper. I love making lists. That's the way I navigate my struggle and my anxiety and my feeling overwhelmed, which is a great word you use. I make a list. This is everything that's coming at me right now. And then I look at it, and this doesn't take a long time. This is literally 3 minutes of your day, right? No one is literally on fire. You're not a firefighter. It seems like you are, but the house is not actually on fire, right? So take a moment and take some deep breaths. Take out your list, either your notes app on your phone or a sticky post, and just write down everything that's coming at you that's overwhelming you. And then prioritize them, put next to them. And they can be out of order on the sheet, but then you just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is what order I'm going to address these. And then you use that hyper focus and fixation skill to put your head down. Do it, right? Don't keep looking at the list and freak out. That's so tempting.
Mm.
Oh my God, what's going to happen if I don't address all of these today? That's never happened. Think back on your life. That's never happened, right? You're able to address multiple things. So you number them and tackle them one at a time. And at the end of the day, you're going to have tackled them and it's going to be fine. It's just fine.
Beautiful. Well done. And you tend to do that on a regular whenever that comes along. That's the kind of system or process that you take on.
That's the system I take on. But I still struggle with, I got number 1 or 2 or 3 done and accomplished. And I love scratching something off my list physically. I love that feeling of accomplishment when you put a line through what you got done. I'm still fixated. I am on number 6. I'm only on number 3, but I'm fixated on number. What happens if I don't get to number 6? Oh my God. Right? Nope. Just keep your head down, keep going, keep working, Don't get overwhelmed, because then you'll stop. Keep your head down and don't worry about number 6. My dad was a deliveryman, and he used, every morning he would fill his truck with his deliveries. In the front of the truck, where the cab is, that's called the front of the truck. That would be your last stops, right? That would be the end of the day for him. And he used to tell me, where he planted the seed for this method: don't look to the front of the truck. When you have all of these boxes and things to deliver, pay attention to what's in front of you. What do you have to deliver right now? Not what do you have to deliver in the front of the truck at the end of the day. What do you have in front of you right now? That doesn't mean that you're not going to deliver to the front of the truck. It just means that you're focusing on the package or the thing that's right in front of you right now in the back of the truck.
So basically you're focusing on the input of what you're trying to do, rather than trying to succeed with the ideal goal, but just focus what's happening now, just the input.
Right. And Eckhart Tolle teaches us to be present in the moment. That's what that means for a neurodivergent person. That's what that means. Be present in the moment. Focus on what you have to do right now. That's not to say that you're blowing off the rest of the list. That's to say that you're focusing on the now.
Beautiful. Love that. That's absolutely wonderful. One question though, regarding the list: how do you cope with not being able to do number 6 on that day?
Well, it's number 6 for a reason, right? So number 6 usually is that thing that nothing bad will happen if it doesn't get done. It should get done, but it's not going to be the end of the world if it doesn't get done. So that's divorcing yourself from the guilt and shame of not having gotten it done. So that means, okay, this thing was due today, but that was a soft deadline. You promised the client, I'm going to get it to you by end of day on such and such day. Usually, if you can forecast and you can tell the client, hey, I had to put out a fire today. This is midday, not at the end of the day. Hey, I had to put out a couple fires today and I didn't get to complete the assignment. I'm going to get that to you tomorrow first thing. It's next on my list, right? And that's when you're at number 3, you send out that email. Now, if you're able to get to number 6, then the client is pleasantly surprised that you were able to put out the fires and get to their task. But unless it really is a hard deadline, which it rarely is, the client is going to go, okay, that's fine. Now, if you keep doing that, that's problematic. That's if you get overwhelmed and you blow off number 6 because you're so overwhelmed. That's not going to fly. Get to number 6 the very next day. First thing. So number 6 becomes number 1 on your list for the very next day. And you're giving yourself room to breathe. And it's a matter of, forecasting your workload. And no client wants a rushed project anyway.
And also you can use the same process within your personal life. So this is not just for business, but this is for your personal life. It's the same thing and same. Would you agree?
I would agree completely, because items 1 through 6 are rarely only business, right? Items 1 through 6 are, like I said, I got a call from the school. My husband and I are having an argument. I have a client deadline. I need to address something with the human resources aspect of my business, an employee issue. Rarely does a person have this nice list of only things they're contending with in their business. Their personal life, the administrative side of business, and the business, the substantive business, all commingle in everyone's life.
Amazing. The way you approach things is almost from a logical point of view. Now, I know you have a good way of dealing things with lists and etc., and you have a good exercise and a process to go through, which we've just gone through just now. But it wasn't easy for you to do that. It wasn't easy for you to go, right, this is what I've got to do now. I'm very overwhelmed, etc., etc. It took you time to get to that automatic process. Now, consider this. There's people listening right now that find it difficult to overwhelm. And what you said makes total sense. But what exercises should they do to get to the so-called easy way of just putting down a list and going through what you just said? What should they do if they're really struggling to get to that stage?
The first thing you have to do is work on your self-talk. If your self-talk is, oh my God, I'm never going to finish. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what to do next. And you're just spiraling.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to accomplish 1 through 6 at all. So your self-talk, the first thing you have to do is calm yourself down. You'll notice what I advise is to take some deep breaths first. You have to sit in calm and breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth forcefully until you feel calm. And and that's usually about 10 deep breaths. And when you get to that stage, your mind will be clearer. And then you say to yourself, I can do this. I'm capable. I always rise to the occasion. Let's roll up our sleeves and write down what we need to do. What is overwhelming me right now? Numbers 1 through 6. They don't have to be in order. You're going to put them in order. It's literally just, writing down everything onto the page that it pops into your mind and capturing it, putting a net around it so that you own it and it doesn't own you. And then you can number them and go about your day. And that will harness the feeling of overwhelm because you're in charge. The list isn't in charge of you. You're in charge of the list.
How beautifully put. It all makes sense. Now, have you got any other tips? Obviously, you are quite a woman that's quite structured in a way that you know what you need to do to go forward within your personal life. It's never perfect, right? In your personal life and business life. But are there any other things? So you're talking about the breathing exercises. Have you got anything else within your life that's fundamental that keeps you going? Because we have our ups and downs, right? To be successful, you don't go from A to Z. It doesn't happen like that. So you've got to go through the bumpy roads. So what is it that's fundamentally flowing through your life that whether that's some kind of faith system, spiritualism, or whatever, that just keeps you strong? Because it's all very well saying we can go through this process, we can do this and etc., but we have our really tough days, and you still need something else to follow you through so you can get back up onto the horse, so to speak.
Thank you for that question. It's rarely asked, so that I love that. Yes, I alluded to self-talk. I think we are all uniquely connected to universe. And I think self-talk is how we connect to universe. And when you are drowning in negative self-talk, you are attracting more of that which you're negatively talking about. So let's say, my checkbook is never balancing. My checkbook is never balancing. I'm so stupid. I can't believe I can't balance my checkbook. I'm always out of money. Right? That self-talk is going to bring more of not being able to balance your checkbook. And if you change that narrative to Sometimes I struggle with my checkbook balance, but I'm working on those skills, and I'm really proud of myself that I was able to pay such and such bill without fear and anxiety this month. I'm really proud of myself. The universe is going to give more of being able to pay your bills without fear and anxiety. Self-talk is not only a way to calm yourself down, it's also an effective tool to connect with universe and to manifest the life that you want for yourself instead of letting life happen to you.
How beautiful. And what I would say to the listeners, even if it's a situation that you believe in a God and it's not a situation you believe that's a universe, it's the same principle.
Same principle.
Yeah, the most important for me, the most important thing, I mean, I'm a Buddhist myself, and I don't believe that any one thing is the be all and end all. As much as I'm a Buddhist, I don't believe that Buddhism is for everybody. You have to find what resonates for you, what rings for you, and if it works for you, you keep with that because it works for you.
Yes. In the same way that if it doesn't work for you, you
Exactly.
must seek out something else.
It doesn't matter.
I was raised Catholic, and that didn't resonate for me, but my spiritual practice now does. And I'm much happier, and I feel much more self-aware in a way that I just didn't when I was practicing Catholicism. And so I absolutely appreciate that you have to seek out what works for you.
And when did that crossover take effect? Because obviously religion, faith system was different when you was younger, and then you found out what works for you. So when did that crossover take over and you thought, aha?
My 40th birthday.
Wow.
It took me a little while to get to a place where I felt brave enough to leave the church. But so
what do you mean by brave enough?
Well, there's a lot of cultural implications about being Catholic.
Okay.
And so it's leaving a community. It's leaving an entire culture.
Okay.
And so to be brave enough to be authentic and not just be a cultural Catholic, that took a lot of bravery for me. And I think being neurodivergent lends itself to that bravery, right? Because you think a different way. You're able to do things that other people aren't able to do. You're able to be unconventional and nonconformist. And that's a gift. That's a real gift.
Okay, so what gave you that push, that bravery? Because it didn't come out of nowhere. I know you made that brave commitment, but what helped you with that push? Was that to do with family, your partner, or did something happen within your life and you thought, no, I've got to do this because of A, B, and C? What was it?
I have to say that my mother, again, she always said that one has not only a right, but a responsibility to practice the faith that resonates with them and brings them the closest to God. And if that's Catholicism, fantastic. If that's Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism, Islam, Judaism, whatever that might be for that person, they don't just have a right to experience that, they have a responsibility to experience that, because the most important relationship that you ever have in life and beyond is with the ultimate power.
What splendid advice that you had yet again in your life. What a stunning mother you have.
I do. I'm very lucky.
You are blessed. You are very blessed. I would love to meet her and have a chat with her, actually, because she's got a wonderful mindset. Of course, parents aren't perfect, but she did give you some nuggets of gold, through the ages. And that was another big turning point within your age. You said, 40 years old is when that turning point happened. And then how did you feel when that turning point came about? Was that a situation where you felt like a veil had lifted over? What was that actual feeling, and how did you pass through that feeling? Does that make sense?
Relief. Yes, relief and joy that I could be authentic. And you asked me what was the impetus? The birth of my second child. It really makes you take, examine your life when you're responsible for two humans who are both under 2 years old. You really take stock of your life and what's important and what isn't. And is being a cultural Catholic the most important thing in the world, or is being authentic and giving them a faith which resonates more important? And so I felt like it was my responsibility. And teaching them sort of a combination, a hybrid of Catholicism and spirituality has been a joy.
And regarding your neurodivergence, we already know this would have helped, obviously, going through the next window of your life. How did that transition help the neurodivergence? So what took place, and how were you able to go forward in a positive or negative way, either or either? Just put us through that, how that helped or hindered your neurodivergence.
I don't know that it helped my neurodivergence. I think the fact that I am neurodivergent helped me to come to a place where I was not only willing, but had a drive to be authentic. Yeah, I think conventional folk who are neurotypical are comfortable with kind of going through the motions and just living in a life that doesn't necessarily resonate with them, but they do things because they're supposed to. And the gift of being neurodivergent is already being a person who isn't like everybody else. And so it's a very easy leap to continue to be not like everybody else. And so I was very comfortable with being authentic and putting myself out there. It was scary. It was a huge decision, but it was more important to me now that I had 2 children to guide and I was responsible for, to be authentic.
What an amazing story. So now 40s have come about, the working situation, and now you've come to that realization, you've made that push. How did it affect your work, if ever? And did you excel with work? Did you make any transitions? How did it help with work situation?
Things that came naturally to other attorneys were a struggle for me. Deadlines were an extreme struggle, not meeting them, but even being aware of them. Because if I didn't have strong support in my secretary or paralegal, I certainly wasn't going to be the one to calendar things and be aware of a deadline or to effectively manage my own calendar. I'm much better at it now because I've stubbed my toe, right? So typically they give not the greatest support in secretaries and paralegals to the young attorneys, right? Although they're the ones who need the support the most. And so when you don't have strong support, you don't have that within yourself, you're going to stub your toe. And I did. I stubbed my toe often. But it taught me, because I struggled and stubbed my toe, it taught me how to put mechanisms in place. So I keep a paper calendar and an electronic calendar. I am fixated and focused on my calendar to make sure I know what I'm doing minute to minute. I also keep a Google Doc of all of my speaking engagements, all of my trainings, all of my podcast engagements. It's all in one Google doc where I can see it day by day. What do I have going on today? And a paper calendar and an electronic calendar, because I need to see it in many different ways for it to kind of focus, for it to stay in my brain.
So we've just come to the fact that the support is very important. Having a mechanism is very important. Now, with this day and age, there's been a lot of changes with technology.
Mm-hmm.
And me personally, what I find is that we're in a great age, especially for us, because the reason being is that where we are weak, technology now could take over in particular. And where we are strong, technology is not quite there. And that's where our gifts lie. Do you feel like that? Do you feel the same way? Do you feel similar? How do you feel about that situation?
I feel like technology fills the gaps where I would otherwise struggle.
Mm-hmm.
But that means that you have to have your finger on the pulse of the technology, right? You can't just rely on technology to save the day.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, with the dawn of the internet, you know, in the late 1990s, that was like a gift from God, because with ADHD, you want to know, if you have a question pop up into your head and you want to know the answer right now,
Mm-hmm.
you'll fixate on that all day. If you don't know the answer, you'll ask people, you'll think about it, you go to the library after work. It's, an obsession. Whereas once the internet came to be, and once it was on our phones, I wonder which amendment it is to the Constitution that says that a president can be replaced by the vice president if there's an emergency, right? Instead of fixating on that, I just look it up. Questions answered, go on with my day. You have to limit those moments so that you can keep 1 through 6 in order. But that's been a huge tool for me to address my ADHD. And I find ChatGPT 4 to be a great tool, because it will help me develop 1 through 6.
Yeah.
If you talk to ChatGPT 4 like it's a buddy, hey, I'm working on this project and I'm struggling a little bit. I can't seem to put in the correct order what I should tackle first and why. And then you give ChatGPT the things that you need to tackle, or the projects you want to work on. And it will say, here's why you should work on this one first. Here's why you should work on this one second, etc. I am amazed by ChatGPT 4. The prior machination was fine. It wasn't great. But now it will be able to look things up on the internet for you in a way that it wasn't able to do before. It's a game changer. I really, really impress upon your listeners to go into ChatGPT 4 and just play and ask it questions about life and how to tackle things, and how to go about things. Yesterday, I typed into ChatGPT 4. Look, I need a pep talk, ChatGPT 4. I need a pep talk. I need you to explain to me using the internet. That's all I said. I didn't direct it to any sites. I said, using the internet, I'd like you to give me a little pep talk about how great I am.
Wow.
And it did. It said, you're great because of this. And it told me where it had gotten the information. You're great because of this. You're great because of that. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, that's amazing. I needed that in the moment. It told me, it reminded me, I am doing a lot of stuff. I am pretty great. All right, let's go. 1 through 6.
Good for you. Listeners, I'm glad we're speaking about this, because I do this exactly the same thing for my clients. I always say to them is when you use AI, you use it as an assistant, not for as something to take over. You have to imagine you have a real life assistant and you speak as if it's an assistant, and then it works for you. And this is where the superpower is when it comes to be using these technologies. And Jacqueline, I'm really glad that you've shown your experience, how you as a divergent yourself use it from that point of view, because it helps massively. Certain systems can be put up to automate your day, actually, things that are really, really difficult, listeners. If you're neurodivergent and you're overwhelmed by doing certain processes over and over again every day, it is possible to put these processes in a way that it can automate those processes. But that's something in a completely different realm for another day. And which I may do, actually. We may do something specifically on how to use technology to help us go along our day, because this is what I do all the time.
Oh, I would love that episode.
Oh, yeah. That's my business. I help neurodivergent people to actually use it within their business and how to alleviate the stress and all the overwhelm. Because I always say to people, forget your weaknesses, work on your strengths, focus on the strength. Where the weaknesses lie, let's see if we can alleviate that with some kind of automated process. And maybe AI may need to, not AI doesn't have to get into anything, but there's ways around it. So, but yeah, I think I will be doing that soon enough. And Jacqueline, if I have you on and probably have you as a study, we can talk about what's going on in your business, and then I could say, look, this is what can be done, etc. So people feel like, oh, I can focus on my gifts and I don't have to worry about those weaknesses. But I will say it is very important to appreciate those weaknesses and try to just alleviate them so you can have a coping mechanism in the situation. So, but why suffer complete when you can use technology to help you along your way? That's where I'm coming from.
I totally agree.
Yeah, exactly. Jacqueline, sorry, I tried to stop talking because the thing is, I'll talk and talk and talk, and then it's dangerous. Right. So we spoke about technology, how you use the technology, and that's been helping you alleviate, and that's been helping no end. So you've got your real assistant that helps you, and also you've got your virtual, as in technology assistant, that supports you. What's your other supporting systems? I take it you've got your husband and your children. How does that all come about? Because family is important. So as a neurodivergent, what are your support systems regarding family? How does that come about? What happens there?
Well, I am in charge of the family's calendar. So ironically, so I have to have my finger on the pulse of what's going on with everyone in the family at all times.
Okay.
And using that hyper focus and fixation skill, I'm able to do that. And for me, that's fun, right? Because, I'm able to keep track of the camp schedule and when assignments are due. And I also, having a bird's eye view for that sort of thing, I'm able to guide my own neurodivergent children and teach them how to manage that themselves, because they're not always going to have my help. And I've been very successful with that, teaching them how to navigate and manage their own calendar. My son is younger, my daughter's older. She's already hit the ground running and is far more advanced than I was at her age. And my son's still learning.
You must be so proud with your daughter.
I'm very proud of her, immensely.
Is she a mini-me?
She is. She
Oh
is a
dear.
baby. She wants to
Oh,
be a lawyer too.
she's in trouble. Oh dear. She's got money. No, that's a good thing. And I'm really glad because obviously you were very focused, passionate in so many ways, as we've already discussed. So you must be very, very proud of her completely. And that's due to you and your husband and your mother and etc. And it takes a village to bring up a child, doesn't it?
It does. And I think community, the people that you surround yourself with,
Mm-hmm.
also not just your family, but the folks you decide to befriend and surround yourself with, I think that is tremendously important. You want to make sure you surround yourself with good quality people who have your best interest in mind, not who are competing with you. A good, healthy competition is enormously helpful. But when you befriend people who are jealous of you or really competing with you, or who are just not a good quality person, those are people to avoid. You want to surround yourself with good quality people.
Yeah, I don't have time to be watching my back, and that finished with me many years. I can say the people in my life, I never have to watch my back, and I make sure I have a very set few people that I know I can rely on. And it sounds like the same with you, especially when you've got kids. You've got to be very careful, and also you don't want people to bring you down, right?
Right.
You have to be careful who's within your circle.
That's right.
It's not to say you can't help everybody else, but you know the type of people that you've got to have at arm's length and know that you know, I've got kids, I've got my own mindset, and etc. So that comes with experience, and I'm sure, Jacqueline, you're an expert when it comes to making sure the family's in the right place with the right people.
I think so. Yeah, I'm very careful.
Yeah, no, I can imagine that for sure. So any tips that we have missed out and I haven't pushed you in the right places? Is there anything that you would like to bear to the front?
Yeah. So I think to maximize your full potential as a neurodivergent person is cultivating your own emotional intelligence. So back in the 1990s, author Daniel Goleman, who is a workplace psychologist at the time, now he's a renowned author, he discussed in his book by the same name, Emotional Intelligence, that the soft skills, social skills that a person is able to cultivate are much more important and impactful on career success than are the hard skills of the substantive work they're doing. So emotional intelligence is self-awareness, empathy for others, motivation, social skills, and self-regulation. And as neurodivergent people, each of those aspects can be lacking. We should, as a community, spend more time cultivating those aspects of our own lives. And if your listeners are interested in doing that, there are droves of websites they can access, which will help you assess your own emotional intelligence so you can see where there are gaps in your knowledge, and then begin to cultivate that in yourself, along with navigating your neurodivergence, and you will be wildly successful if you're able to do all three: your substantive work, navigating your neurodivergence in a positive way, and managing your own emotional intelligence.
Wow, you're full of wonderful information, I must admit. You're You're amazing, actually. Your whole family. I love the whole family structure. Your mother, your children, and what you, the path that you've led in your life. It hasn't been easy, but
No.
you've done well. And that's something to be proud of for sure. So let's move on to your business. We know that your neurodivergence helps you have an edge within your business and what you do. So let's talk about your business. How can you help people? Just give us some details and how you have helped people. Give us some examples when it comes to your business.
So my business is all the pre-litigation human resources aspects. As I discussed with you, I'm out of the litigation game. So I help employers develop their employee handbooks, training platforms, workplace investigations, conflict resolution, mediations, and developing the emotional intelligence of leadership and employees. And I come into an organization, and whatever the organization is hiring me to do, my goal is to maximize the full potential of the employees so that the employer, the business owner, can best profit from that maximization. There is no sin in wanting to be the most profitable business you can. And a lot of times the soft skills of the emotional intelligence are not cultivated by the company enough. And employers find themselves being sued for discrimination, harassment, retaliation, when in reality, it was that leadership had not cultivated those soft skills well enough. And so the employee was left with no choice but to view whatever happened to them through a lens of believing that they had been targeted based on their race, their age, their sexual orientation, their religion, what have you. So we can develop ways for an employer to maximize the full potential of their leadership and employees with the aim of reducing the risk of employment litigation.
And it sounds like you've had to accumulate a huge amount of skills, because actually that takes a huge diverse worth of skills there with what you've spoken about. So with that said, how do the listeners contact you if they're interested in your services?
Oh, thank you. So I can be reached on my website, www.wagnerhr.com. And I also have a LinkedIn presence. And I would be very happy to help anybody who needs it.
And listeners, you can see, with her story, the huge amount of experience that she's got, plus with the neurodivergence, which actually gives her an edge, because she can see right between the eyes of many situations. So if you have an issue that she could help you with, I'll leave the details down below so you're able to contact her very easily. And do not hesitate to do so, because you can't go wrong with being able to connect with Jacqueline for sure. Jacqueline, I could easily speak to you for a long, long time, the next few hours, and I'm a chatter, I'm a discusser, and a chat, and I have to be. This is my neurodivergence. I've got to be disciplined, and I've got to put a line in the sand and say, unfortunately, Jacqueline, we're going to have to put this to bed for the time being. But I do appreciate you spending time with me and with us, and actually giving us some valuable goal towards our lives and inspiration at the same time, because you have inspired us not only from the point of view of how we can tackle our own lives and the issues we have, but also from a point of view as parenting while having those issues, which is very, very important. And for that, we thank you.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you.
And with that, listeners, I will see you very soon with the next one. And I will say sayonara.